Okay, we're recording.
Okay. Welcome to the February 4th, 2026 meeting of the School Committee's Finance and Capital Improvement Subcommittee. This meeting has also been publicly noticed as a meeting of the full school committee, which permits all members to participate in the deliberation. I would note that we have a quorum of subcommittee members present and a quorum of school committee members present. And as chair of the subcommittee, I will be leading today's meeting. Thank you, Betsy, for that wording, providing it to me so I could read that so eloquently.
Well done.
Okay, first item on the agenda. I believe we just have two. Am I right, Betsy? Do we have minutes too? Sorry, I'm like
They're
a little
not in
bit.
the agenda packet, but is an approval listed for them, but they're not there.
Okay. Are they? I thought it just
I
says it goes to non-aligned. Non-aligned is the first thing. Am I right, Betsy?
You're looking at the school committee agenda. So remember, we are running two meetings
Well,
right now. The subcommittee agenda is a separate.
I gotta go to the other one. Sorry.
Wait, I'm sorry. There's a different agenda for school committee?
Well, there is because they wouldn't be taking up the subcommittee's minutes. So on their agenda, I started right with the hourly rates. If that makes
Well,
sense.
whichever one,
Yeah,
no, because
I'm
I mean, I
sorry.
clicked on the finance and capital one on brooklinema.gov and I ended up with a school committee agenda, finance and capital improvements meeting. So
yeah.
maybe I'm looking at the one, but the meeting material. It's okay. I don't know. I just can't see the minutes. That's all.
I do send the minutes out, and I don't normally make them a part of this meeting's packet because they aren't approved yet. So I wait until they're approved and then I attach them to the meeting that they are for.
Okay.
Anyway,
So can you
we
remind
can put them
me?
off till next week if
Yeah.
you prefer.
Do you mind?
No,
That way
not
we
at
can
all.
just go through
Yeah,
to
not
the
at
core
all.
stuff. Okay. So the next thing is the non-aligned hourly rates. Betsy, do you want me to pull up the version that I have, or can we just run off of yours? Is that
I
okay?
have it that you sent to me,
Okay,
so I'll pull it up if you'd like, right here.
great. So first off, I just want to deeply thank the staff, the senior staff who worked on some of the updates you're going to see here, because a lot of thought was put into this. Not all of the changes that we talked about in the past have been made yet, but a lot of them have been. And I think it's really helpful to start to have a structure that grounds the summer program stipends. So I think, Betsy, what might be the most helpful is if you don't mind going to the last page, so we can
Okay.
start on the last page and then we'll go back up to the historical document. So, um, Karen or Robin, I don't want to put you on the spot, but does either one of you want to talk through this, or do you want me to talk through what you did?
Sure. Roman and I can start, and then feel free to jump in, Mariah.
Sure.
So just for a bit of context, this came up last year, shortly after I had started, and at the time, actually, I think post your last meeting when you approved these in the spring, you had actually tasked Jody and I to sort of do the exercise that we have now done. Which was really to look at all of the summer programs, which are very, very different, right? They're different length of programming, number of students, number of staff, number of days, the hours of the program, and really try and come up with a system in which there was some equity and parity, knowing that there are lots of exigencies between the programs, and we're not going to be able to cover for each one of them, but we really tried our best to sort of think really carefully and thoughtfully with, Robin and I, and Robin particularly being obviously new to Brookline, with, the knowledge that we have of the programs. And obviously we had last year actually had sent out a spreadsheet to all the program directors, just really asking for data. And so the data that people gave us was the length of the program, the hours of the program, the staffing of the program, the number of students, the hours of the day. And so we really were able to sort of see what are the differences. And then again, really tried to come up with something that would feel fair, that would feel equitable. Some of the concerns that I certainly heard last spring, and Robin, jump in because I know you heard some concerns this year as well, were really around that the rates for directors and coordinators, and we're using director and coordinator interchangeably. It's just really what people have called the people, who are leading the programs. Were just really varied and didn't really often make sense based on what people were doing. I can speak just for the program I have the most knowledge of, which is ESY. So for example, even amongst ESY, we have ESY K through pre-K through 22, but the BEEP and the BHS programs, which you can see on the form, are very different from the K-8 program. Yet all those rates were all the same. So all the coordinators who were really running, our K-8 program is very big. We have that huge grade span. We have 180 students, 80 plus staff. The person running that program received the same coordinator rate. And so I sort of know personally that there's really inequity even within that. And so what we did is, and then, we know that, people who are running the programs, there's pre-work, right? You're hiring your staff, you're prepping in terms of students. There's work during the actual summer, and then there's post-work. And again, speaking of ESYs, people have to do progress reports. The coordinators have to make sure that all the progress reports are in and done, and there's work like that with all the programs. And so what we tried to do is come up with a base rate, which looking at what we felt was a really solid base rate in terms of what the teachers earn during the summer, and making sure that the people who are coordinating and leading these programs on a per diem basis are making more than the people who are teaching in the programs, and really being able to try credit the work. And then also then trying to, on top of that base rate, adding a differential, because again, a lot of the pre-work is hiring staff, and many of the programs use Brookline staff, and the same staff often come back year after year. That's a much lower load in terms of hiring than, say, for example, programs where you're actually hiring people outside of Brookline and you're going through an entire hiring process. So trying to factor in, again, those kind of pieces. And so adding onto the base rate a differential for hiring, which, as you can see on the form, is a $1,500 differential in terms of for 60 per 60 staff hired. And then in terms of student, a $1,500 differential for 180 students. And then, as you can see, it's prorated in terms of the percentages looking at that differential. So that was the methodology. It's definitely imperfect, and certainly, but it was sort of where we felt like we could create something that had some equity and parity in it. Robin, do you want to?
Yeah, I think, as we kind of went through this, we tried to be as methodical as we could, as Karen was saying, just look very clearly at some of those factors that might impact the load, understanding that every program is different, right? So it's really hard to capture it all, but at the same time, trying to be as fair to the people that are leading those programs across the board, and also to establish some kind of baseline. So thinking about if programs change, if we're adding a new program, we have a place to work from that we can budget for or estimate like what that stipend might be. So
Thank you both. Jesse, go ahead.
Thank you. I had two questions on the two, one on each table. Karen, the one on the top, well, I guess one thing from a formatting perspective is that the upper table, the rate for FY26 is like before the one for FY25, whereas the rates down below has FY25, then progressing to the right to FY26. I wonder if there was a rationale for not keeping them consistent. And then
no.
okay, and then
No rationale, but good point, Jesse.
And the next one, yeah, well, in terms of, normally the eye looks across and you're not even, you're assuming that the years are going up, and then I was caught on that. The second question, I guess there's a third now. The second question is there a reason that Star Academy is the only one of the ones down below that shows a reverse direction in the FY26 schedule of payments? Everything's going, it's the Star Academy teachers, the per hourly, doesn't say hour on the far right, but for 4841, but it goes up. But the director and assistant director both go down. Is there a reason?
So
Or those numbers switched?
So when you look at the base rate, the program runs for 15 days. So everybody starts with the base rate. So if you look at the top table, the number of days, that calculates your base rate. And the base rate
go up, Betsy, all the way to just the white table. Yeah, thanks.
So And the directors coordinators, the base rate per
Right.
diem daily is 500 and assistant directors and coordinators 375.
The 15, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's really determined by your base rate. And then as you'll see, there's a differential. So Star Academy, for example, serves the most students at 325. So that has a higher differential for students and then staff. But that's how it was calculated. And so it's just really
Sure.
going through the methodology based on how many days are people working, and then the differential for staffing, which is, your hiring, and then your differential for students.
So that raises, I guess, maybe a follow-up question on that one. Is this to impact the ability to attract or retain a director and assistant director, seeing the sort of a significant decrease in the offered program rate for them for next year, or for this year, really? Meaning, people who were like directing Star Academy for 18,000 this year for the same days are going to get 11,000. So is that going to impact our ability to get the people we need to run the program? In your, from your perspective?
Robin, do you want to?
I mean, I'm unsure. I think like in terms of, but at the same time, I don't think that we can continue with the stipend where it was. And if we're trying to equitably distribute that formula, right? So
yeah, I get it.
So,
and then the final point was, are there certain columns other than the ones that have the dollar signs in the upper table? The one, Betsy, just bring it down. Yeah, just a bit. Yeah. So is like base and staff, should those have dollars in them so that we know that those are dollar values?
What?
I mean,
what are you
like-
referring to?
Yes, you're completely correct. The base, that's the base salary. There should be dollars.
Oh, base. Okay.
And
when you were
base and
saying- yes.
and staff, I think.
Yes.
Maybe each of those probably need to be.
No, staff is
That's a
yes,
count.
You're correct. No,
Yeah.
you're correct.
No, they're not 225 staff members.
No,
Oh,
you're
right.
correct. Those
Yeah.
should all have dollar signs. You are correct.
Whichever one should. I was just going to suggest as a
Format, yes, you're
a
correct.
comment to update the ones that belong, that
Yeah.
should have dollars with dollars.
There's
This
a
makes-
lot of formatting, Jesse, that I want to tweak on this to clean it up.
Thank you.
I just
Okay.
didn't get all the
okay.
way through. I didn't get all
No
the way
problem.
through because
No,
of everything else. in
you are
life.
Yeah,
correct.
sure, of course. All
Yeah.
right, thank you. That's
No,
yeah,
those
thank
are-
you for this.
Good pieces for clarity.
Can I ask a slightly different question? So I think this is great. And the thing that came up to me was, should Star Academy have 2 assistant directors, given how much larger the student population is? I mean, it's like almost twice as big as Project Discovery or ESY. And you added, I think rightfully, an ESY K-8 assistant coordinator because of the substantially larger program size than the other
Nice.
programs. And I'm just wondering whether Star Academy should have 2 assistant directors, given that it's, again, as I said, almost twice as big as ESY K-8.
Well, the one thing, and this, you see it says TBD because there's some information and Robin can more speak to us. There is a team leader at Star Academy, but I think that's a good question to follow up with
Okay.
in terms of, is that adequate staffing? Again, we need more information on I think
the role of the team leader.
what the
'cause it's
role of the team leader does. And as you can see, that wasn't calculated because we weren't really clear what that role is and how to calculate that. So that needs some follow-up. But I think that's a good question.
Okay. 2 more questions, which were here from before. You said that the BEEP enrichment director salary, I interpret that to mean it's set by some sort of contract. Which contract is that?
It is in the Unit A bargaining contract. I had reached out to Margaret. I went through the contract and tried to find it to try and get what the FY26 salary was and could not find it, but Margaret assures me it's there. So we just need to get it is called out in the contract. So
Okay.
in the bargaining contract, just that role for some reason is actually contractual.
Okay.
And Margaret is not clear why or how, but apparently has been there for many years. So that's set by the contract rate.
Okay. Sarah, I see your hand is up.
Just again, a thank you. I think that it's really helpful for the educators that are involved when they know that what they're paid is meaningful, that that there's been a way of thinking it through. and that the person that's in a different job at the same level as them, that's been thought through too. So I appreciate all of this work.
Carolyn?
Is the BEEP enrichment director a summer position?
Yes.
These are all summer.
Yes.
So
Yes.
BEEP runs full year. The tuition for BEEP is a full year.
No.
There's a separate fee that I think we voted last year. I can't remember how much it is. I think it might be $600 a week for BEEP enrichment.
So is BEEP enrichment another word for BEEP summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe we should just put BEEP as we
Summer BEEP.
formatted BEEP summer enrichment. But yes, it's sort of the BEEP version of summer enrichment, a summer
Yeah, well, it's
enrichment.
it's in the summer program rates table, so yeah.
Yes. So I have one other question. Is there a reason that we shouldn't just sort of for parity and to make people aware of the roles equivalency, rough equivalency, convert the coordinator title to a director title? So that we sort of have some standardization there? Because for the longest time, I thought all the coordinators reported to a director. Like, it didn't sound the same to me. So that's why I'm suggesting it or asking.
So I think, I mean, again, I don't know. I think it's always been coordinator, and maybe because there are special ed directors who work fully. And so maybe
Okay.
that's why it's been, and the special ed directors are on site and are working and just, so I think that's probably why it's coordinator and the others all directors.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you. And then the last question was at the bottom, just there was a discrepancy there, but I think we probably can't answer that without Margaret here. Because you all had in your table $47 an hour for BEEP enrichment teachers, but last year we had voted $56. So I just wasn't clear what was the actual, but the 56 aligns with the ESY rate. All of the other gen ed programs are 47, so I wasn't sure which was actually right.
Okay. But
Yeah,
we'll have to check that with Margaret.
okay. Carolyn, go ahead. You're on mute. You're still on mute. Okay.
I'm clicking back and forth to my Google where I can control what I'm seeing on the document myself. So apologies if I missed this in the initial explanation. Some of these, because I'm just looking at this and it's a lot of numbers. Some of these are expressed as a salary and some are hourly. Did I just miss the whole part where above you're saying that you set the salaries based on a rate? Like, it's difficult for me to compare. When
Let me give you a
something
little
is-
bit of background that might help. So the directors last year were the ones that felt really discrepant and we didn't understand. So the top table really is for the coordinators and directors, the rationale, and then how that rolls out in their calculation. Then the bottom table combines the fact that some people are stipended and other roles are hourly or per diem. So that's like everybody working in the summer programs table at the bottom. Not just the directors that we had really asked them to dig deep on the rationale and equity around the stipend they received. Does that help?
I guess I'm wondering whether the positions that are listed in the larger rates table that are salaried, like, I would love to see, for example, ESY BEEP coordinator, FY26, 13,167, parentheses, blank per hour, because some things are listed per hour and some are listed as a salary. So it feels like it's a little bit apples to oranges for me, sort of looking at this without all of the background knowledge. Like,
Susan,
I'm
go
in the
ahead.
forest, not the weed, not the
Sure.
trees.
I think Susan's raising her hand to respond. You're on mute, Susan, in case you were talking.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, so some positions under labor law are hourly employees, and so therefore they would be paid by the hour. other professional, what are considered to be professional under labor law would be receiving a salary just like they would during the school year. So that's why you have a difference between some people getting hourly and some people not.
Thank you. I understand why it's shown that way, or what, or I understand that. Just for my understanding of the complete picture, it would be helpful, not essential, to see how the salaries end up comparing to the hourly rates.
Well,
Not essential, but just again, as someone not sort of deeply connected to this and having a lot of background knowledge.
I think that if you wanted to, Carolyn, you could basically just take that number and divide it by the number of days and your choice of the hours per day.
And the days is up above.
It is, yep, exactly. So it gives you, so you could say, oh, well, that position is X days, and I'm going to divide the total by X and then divide it again by, you know, whether you're counting as 7 hours or 8 hours or 6 hours or whatever.
Which I don't know, but.
Well, it's, again, it gets into this position of salaried and the part that they're getting that differential to manage all the, you know,
Okay.
wraparound.
Thanks.
And
Sure.
I might also just add is for like when you're considering part of like as we thought about like the structure for the people that are salaried, that idea that if they have more staff, there is work that is actually done beyond those, you know, those 15 days or 20 days or whatever it is, because
Sure.
they may be hiring, all of that happens ahead. They may be
Sure.
doing reporting after, things like that.
Sure. And it may be that I'm asking this question because I was thinking about it with respect to the earlier part of this document, which I assume we'll be looking at too.
Yes, we will.
So,
I thought this was really helpful to frame then what we do above, because, and this is where the heart of the work is, and it's really nicely presented. So you lead us to the next part of this. Unless anyone else has any more questions on this, I want to go back up to the top. This is the original document. Keep going, Betsy, all the way. So a couple of things that are different. First off, I want to clean up the formatting for this because the document itself, as you start to think about it, it has like basically some substitutes, it has summer programs, and then it has everything else. But the way it's laid out now does not follow that format. So I think we can do some cleanup in the next version. With that said, music extension, we just, that was the vote we took in June. And Robin, I don't know if you had the chance to check in with Kenny, but my recollection was that we had voted last year that the minimum was close to what they're doing now or what the actual was. And the whole point was to give him plenty of flexibility in case he needed to increase the rate in future years. So that's why there's a range of 45 to 50 per
Okay.
hour. Yep. Then I deleted out adult education because that's no longer PSB program. Parent-child home program. One of you said, I can't remember, that Margaret said that the external rate is $27 an hour. And so we updated that from 20 that was before.
I think I checked 24.
You did, but you wrote that it was 27.
She initially said 27 and then she said it's not, it's 24. So
Okay, so
that's why I changed it. Yeah, it's 24.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We will fix that.
Okay.
24. And then direct service provider, we update, no, this is the number that was there originally, and you are okay with that number, Karen?
Yep.
Okay. Then if you can just keep going. Then this is the summer programs. This is the format we had in the prior year, but I think again we should look at the way that it was presented at the end and do a little bit of cleanup. But basically you can see all of the rates here have just been updated according to the earlier table that we reviewed. The only one that there is a discrepancy is if you scroll down. First off, the team leader, sorry, a little bit up. The team leader, which we talked about earlier for Star Academy. Robin, you're still getting some confirmation on what that should look like.
Yep.
And then the other one I wanted to mention was down the very bottom, beep enrichment. Again, this question of the rate last year was 56 an hour, but in the table was 47 an hour. So just confirming which one should be used with Margaret. And then I want to get to the table on the next page. Oh, the student intern rates. I don't know if anyone had the chance to confirm, or is PSB, is the actual rate $16 an hour right now? Carolyn, hang on one second, then I'll get to you. Susan, I saw you took yourself off mute.
I don't know if, I think it might have increased actually, but I'd need to check and confirm that.
Okay, because at minimum, it would seem like it would match the living wage
Yeah.
bylaw. So, okay, that would be good to double check.
I will.
And then the non-aligned stipends section, this is where people had a lot of questions last year. And I want to acknowledge that with all the work you did for summer programs, there wasn't necessarily enough time to go back and look at all of this. So I think this is just a chance to perhaps say that this is a future body of work for the most part. But Carolyn, why don't you go ahead and ask your question, and then I will also find some of Donna's questions that she sent.
My question is back on summer programs, page 2. I'm just curious what the security role is.
I think it's just the building security, like for the high school, the regular security paras that they have.
I guess I don't know that much about security paras.
BHS has,
I believe those are the campus aides.
there's, I can't remember if there's 2 or 4. It's in that ballpark.
Somebody
Am I remembering
say,
right?
what is
5.
that? What's that
5?
role?
Yeah, there's 5, and during the school year, we have 5, and then in the summertime, they have 1 or 2 that work during the period of time in which we have summer school. So they fall under the para contract, which is why it's called para here, oddly, as our IT staff are also under the para contract. But that's why the reference here is para salary schedule, because they are part of that collective bargaining unit.
What is that role at the high school?
The campus aides, their job is to really monitor the physical campus when students are in the halls or when they're not. That is their function. So when people are passing, their responsibility is also to sort of monitor the space between 22 Tappan and the main building. The other buildings, they it's actually fairly intricate space. So they're really monitoring for safety and student conduct. It's a typical position to have in high schools.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna ask some of Donna's questions. If you could go back to the 3rd page again, Betsy. One of the questions was, is this list of stipends inclusive of all stipends? For example, Donna didn't see the Rainbow Club that's at Lawrence represented, and she imagines that educator is paid a stipend.
There's a provision in the teacher's contract that for smaller clubs like that, they might get like a $500 stipend for certain types of things that a principal might establish. There's also a whole list of stipends that are in the teacher's contract. So this does not include all stipends that we pay everybody for everything.
Thank you. Her next question was, how does the $800 paid for a child study team member compare to the hourly rate paid for project discovery teachers, for example? I think it's sort of getting at sort of the equity and workload question, and I can totally imagine you won't necessarily have the answer to these questions on the fly.
Let's say again, she wants to know how much the child study who worked during the school year, how it compares to what the project discovery rate for summer school. Is that
Yes,
okay?
exactly. Like, how does the $800 compare when you were to, if you were to convert it to an hourly rate?
Okay.
And I'm sorry, the lights in this room just turned off, so I'm gonna wave my arms. You talk. Oh, they're there. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to make sure I was
Yeah.
clear about what she was asking. And that
Mhm.
would be so variable because child study works differently in every building. We could look at trying to come up with some average. That's going to be a hard question to answer, but we can try.
I think it's pretty hard to come up with how many hours are
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah, yeah, but we can try.
And I think the other part is what's beyond the school day and what isn't, because a portion of the work is done during the school day. So I think
Correct.
really apples to oranges here.
Yeah, because
I
that
guess
is,
the stipend would come into play if it's during your free time during the school day, right?
Or if they're
Opposite.
performing some responsibilities outside of the school day. For example, if they're meeting with other teachers outside of the school day for a particular purpose, but it wouldn't be all, it's not a consistent thing that I think you could document and say
Right.
it's always this.
Yeah.
Summer school is different, right? It's beyond the school year. It's not during a regular time frame in which teachers and paras would normally be working.
What does the coordinator of online learning at the high school do? It's a relatively large stipend, and I
That was
just
on
wasn't
my
clear with it.
list too.
So I can speak to the knowledge that I have, and Robin, you may know. So we have Edgenuity, and it's all of our students who might access an online course for credit or for extension or for enrichment gets managed. And it's a pretty extensive sort of body of work that goes into managing our Edgenuity contract and programming, if that's what that's referring to, which I think it is.
I
I
believe
believe
it
that's
is.
what it's
Yeah.
that's what it's referring to, and you're correct.
Thank you. Carolyn, go ahead.
Thanks. So to Donna's question, the answer of does this include, is this inclusive of all stipends? I think was the question. And then the answer was no. So, can we at some point in the budget process get a list of all?
I think Susan said they're in the contract.
In
So
the
it would just be this plus the contracted,
I guess maybe
list in the contract.
I'm gonna ask this a different way that I think might capture it better, what I'm interested in. I'd be interested in seeing, like, last year for FY 25, what did we pay in stipends and for what? Like, I'd love to just see a report. So we see these are the rates and all these different positions. And then there's also positions in the contract, and maybe there's some others, and maybe some are grant funded. I'd love to really know, like, what did we spend on these?
I would second that request, but I might frame it a little bit differently. Rather than seeing like actual payments, what I'd like to know is like, for example, how many child study members do we budget for? I'm not even sure, like, I'm a little vague on that. So is this 800 actually 8,000 or 80,000? I don't know what it turns into in the budget. So some of these I imagine are probably one-offs, and some of them are quite extensive. And I think it's just a little bit of understanding how they fit into the larger budget. For me, I don't mean to say, Carolyn, that your approach is,
No, I
not
think
valid, but
that's a really interesting question too, particular to the child study team. Like, so I'm guessing it means 800 to participate in a child study team. And I think child study teams are probably really important. Really important in the, context of related to special education referrals and other interventions. So, And then that's sort of related to just like, is there an incentive to participate in a child study team, which I'm going to say is probably an important role, or what are we incentivizing people to do with the different rates, and how is it turning out? So I know it's work to pull those things together, but I feel that that's sort of that back end information feels important to me to understand. And sorry, I'm going to throw in two more.
Can I just speak to that for a second? And at the same time, as you're understanding all of that, we also have to understand who would do the work if we didn't have the really experienced teachers doing it, right? So are we actually in some way kind of saving by having it be stipended work instead of bringing in, a salaried additional FTE?
I'm not
for
at
it?
all suggesting that teachers shouldn't do child study teams. I'm asking whether we're incentivizing teachers to do child study team well enough versus being a
Music adjudicator.
thank you.
Is
Yes.
is the stipend high enough? Is that what you're getting at?
I think
I
the question is,
know,
in
that's-
general,
those
do
aren't my
the
words.
stipends do the stipends incentivize the right people to participate where they should, right?
It's
Is that the
not
idea?
even a question of whether that stipend is high enough, but I'm interested in the full picture. And if maybe some stipends are too high for what might be less important work. I don't know, because some are hourly expressed, some are flat rate expressed. So I'd love to understand it better. And I did ask this last year, just specifically with respect to the high school as well. Like, it's just, it does turn out to be a lot of money. And so I think it's important for us to know sort of where the money's flowing. And sorry, I'm going to throw out my other,
Yes, go for it.
calculus project is listed here somewhere, I think.
Right, summer one.
Young
The summer-
Scholars Calculus Project. So that's
No,
like the
there- no,
after school club. Nope, go back to where we were, Betsy. It's right there. It's sort of
It's-
halfway down. Right? The Young Scholars Calculus Project teacher? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
No, it's mentioned somewhere else.
Yeah, but here,
I thought there was something that just said calculus project.
Correct. There is.
Alone.
Yeah, there is.
And so I just was curious about whether that's just, I don't know what
Let's see if I can find
in the
it.
summer programs you're referring to on the
I don't
previous
know.
page.
I
Can you
just
go to the
wrote it
previous
down.
page,
I just wrote
Betsy?
down calculus project ?
Are you asking because we're still using that name? It just means the math summer program.
I guess I'm asking because I don't know what the status of the calculus project is.
My
I
understanding,
see.
Bella's here, but my understanding is that we are still operating the math summer project program as we have always done, or as we have done at least for the last.
It has
years.
it has a different name, and Robin might know the name. I think it's FX.
FX.
Yeah, so they're running the program as they have.
Okay.
But Calculus Project is a brand name, meaning
Yes, no, I know,
yeah,
I know all
so
that, and that's
so
why
they
I'm
used
asking.
sure, and they used to pay a sum just to be
Right.
able to be
Yeah.
part of Calculus Project, and so but otherwise they're doing everything as they would, and they're just no longer paying that administrative fee to Calculus Project anymore.
Okay, so it may just be that where this says Young Scholars Calculus Project Teacher, that maybe just that nomenclature.
If you,
There's also appears on the
if you
prior
scroll up,
page. Yeah, it's on the prior
second
page
box
as
on
well.
the prior page, second box prior page from the top. Keep going.
Keep going, Betsy.
Keep going.
There you
There it
go.
is.
Right
There it
there.
is. Second one down. Summer
I-
BHS calculus program.
Yeah, so Susan might know better, but I believe there is a Young Scholars project that is separate from what the calculus project was.
Okay.
So I don't really understand
The
how to
Young
clarify
Scholars
that
is like
nomenclature, but there is
the
a
Young
Young
S-
Scholars
yeah,
program.
Okay.
The Young Scholars, at least as a parent, was for Black and Latino students in middle school, and there was an after-school component to it. Both an in-day, and Robin, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but like there's in-day and after-school component to it. And so I believe that's what the later page refers to. And then this one is referring to the summer program, which is complementary
Okay.
to in-year programming. But again,
Right.
some of the Young Scholars was after school. So I believe that's what the stipend refers to.
And we just may need to be changing the name. So the name of is FX. So as I said, so it's fostering excellence in mathematics. So it's
Okay.
capital F, capital E, lowercase x.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Excel program lead teacher. Why is that
Betsy, can you go back down to page 3?
sorry, because I'm on
Thank you.
my own document here.
It's like 2/3 of the way down for
Excel is
$3,000.
a program under Office of Student Services at the high school, right? I'm just curious why that lead teacher, is this meaning for some? Like, what is that?
So
If Excel is as an OSS program, how come there's a lead teacher that's paid? It's a non-aligned.
no, it's not. So that is historical. There has been a lead teacher in Excel since I was here the last time. So that isn't something new. That is a fairly large program in which, many of our other programs like Steps to Success, Winthrop House, all have program coordinators or program leaders that are sort of full-time assigned positions. So that lead teacher position has been in sort of the kind of makeup of how Excel runs sort of probably for decades. In terms
That
of
makes sense. I'm just wondering why it's here as opposed to at like an FTE position, if that question makes sense.
I think it's here because it's not contractual, so it's non-aligned. It's not in the contract. It shows up here.
Okay, I guess, and that just was confusing to me since I'm assuming all the rest of the Excel staff are aligned. So I just didn't understand why.
So it's a stipend. So the person in this role would be teaching in the program and be getting a stipend after hours to do some of the coordinating role and function for Excel. So that's
I see.
that's a stipend, but it's not
So
a
this is a lead teacher who is a
teacher's.
presumably a Unit A teacher.
Correct,
This is for
correct.
other work that they do
Correct.
outside of
Exactly,
hours.
beyond the school day. Is how it you, and again, it could have changed. So it's been, my experience is a long time ago. So I don't have, but that's how the Excel and that position had been structured. But the person is a teacher within the program.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And is there one of those positions? Or
Yes,
more than one?
I am going to double check for you. But yes, there was one person. And I actually believe it might be the same person who's been in that role for many years, but I will double check and confirm that.
I'm just going to take a time check and for Jesse and Sarah, and I'm going to ask one quick question, but then I'll let you both go. But I want us to wrap up because, again, I think the effort was really spent on the other side, and I appreciate the staff taking our questions. You're sort of seeing what we're wondering about for this, and this is like for future reference. My only question right now on this section is there any role here which you're having trouble filling that we should adjust? And you might not have that answer tonight, and that's okay, but that would be my big concern, is making sure that your needs are being met. And if you're not be able to attract people into key roles, we should address that.
Most of these positions are filled.
Great.
In some cases where you have multiples, you might not get all of them all the time, So for example, to answer the question about child study teams in general, we budget 8 at each elementary school. In general, those positions are filled, but you might have a school that has 6. You might have another school that has 7. You might have another school that has all 8. So.
Thank you. Okay, Jesse, go ahead.
Quick question to follow. Ability then to the extent possible to just add a narrow column on this table that just has the count of staff that are in that position.
There's difference between the count of staff and what we budget. So I'd really, maybe Mariah and I can sit and have get some
Sure.
clarity around what I'm looking.
Well, I mean, it could be
getting-
what's budgeted in terms of
Yeah.
FTE, and then also how many, FY25, what do we have? So we know what we're spending. Thank you. That's the only comment I had.
Yeah, that would be interesting, right? Just the rate for the individual and then the total budget for it would be intriguing.
Exactly.
Go
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead,
right.
Sarah.
We don't budget them separately, but
So we said at the onset that, it's not perfect and we're, doing a pass now, and this is something that we'll return to. So I guess Karen and Robin, I just hope in order to like capture the full picture that we think about who has to do work outside of the hours that, like going back to the directors in the summer, who has to do work outside of the hours of the program, who has staff that does some of that work, the communication with the parents, the spreadsheets, the, enrollment and all of that. There's so many aspects to look at. So that's why I guess I kind of appreciated the way you led this conversation was to say, it's hard to make it perfect, right? But I just wanted to note that all of those things, as we try to get better and better at doing this, that's part of the role that we're looking at. Who's writing curriculum, who's doing office work prior to the summer, and and any of these things prior to the program, and who's just showing up and putting in the hours at the time. So I assume that you probably already thought about that, but I just seen that we're having the conversation, wanted to make sure to put that in.
I want to just build off of that. One of the questions that Donna had was there was data presented to ERSC earlier this week, and it showed that one of the high school +1s is the career student program. And Donna asked, because Donna's question was about the intersection between stipends and +1s, and are there any +1s that are also stipended? And so Donna's question was about, why was Career Student Program a +1, but perhaps there are other student affinity groups at the high school that aren't offered in a +1 model. That's a little bit out of the scope of this question, but generally just thinking about why is a program a +1 versus a stipend versus, and making sure that there's, distinction between them. I will put that out there as a big comment, not to respond to, but for your future thinking on this. Okay.
Oh, and sorry, and also what, if some of this is grant funded, does it at that point make sense to not have it be all aligned with other positions that we're paying for? Do you understand what I'm saying? If we're going to have, again, going back to directors and assistant directors, have them be paid through grant money, does it make sense to align those with other positions that we pay for ourselves? Does that make sense?
I think that I philosophically, they should all be aligned because you shouldn't be treating other people's money differently than your local taxpayer money.
Okay.
And
Good
I think
point.
there's actually something I don't want to get too far into federal funding and grant funding, but I think that there's actually requirements around this. Yeah, you can't pay more from federal funds than you would from your own funds. But I will defer to other people who know more about that. Okay, let's toggle over. Thank you all for this conversation. And I think our next step is I'll clean up the document, and I know that Robin and Karen and Susan, you're very interested in getting this processed relatively quickly so that you can post the positions you need to for the summer, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and this is on the agenda for tomorrow night at school committee. And I think what would make a lot of sense is to hopefully if we don't vote the whole thing, at least vote like large swaths of it tomorrow so that you can proceed with
Yeah.
key positions. And then if there's other questions, we can resolve those like a little slower, but they will be less critical.
Thank you. That's actually what I was going to ask, if we could vote the summer so that we can post and hire. Many of these ones that you've just been looking at are already in play for this year. But the summer ones we're hoping to post straight after February school vacation. So it would be great.
Got it.
It would be great
Yeah.
to get those
So
voted on
Betsy,
if we can.
Betsy, should we have a recommendation from the finance subcommittee to do that? I'm just trying to think because the full school committee's here, but I guess that makes sense, right? To at
That
least
makes
make a
sense, yeah.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
I can make a
so
motion.
why don't you go ahead and make a motion, Jesse, regarding summer that we can.
Yeah, so
for
the,
the full
yeah,
committee.
yeah, let me move that Finance and Capital Subcommittee approve the summer rate plan and therefore allow it to move to full school committee at their next meeting.
I will second that with just a little like asterisk on it that we're still going to get clarity hopefully from tomorrow from Margaret just on what the staff rate should be for the BEEP summer program. But we'll move the summer program along with whatever Margaret tells us for that
Right.
for that one position. So seconded it. Sarah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jesse, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you. Okay. I think we're going to toggle over to building department. So Jesse and I met with Charlie Simmons and Charlie Young and Carol Levin yesterday. And we wanted to provide some updates to you all on this. So there was some questions. This is following up on our prior conversations that we'd had. And we'd said, as we'd mentioned at the last meeting, we'd set a meeting with them separately. And so this is just meant to be a little bit of a review of what we talked about and what the action items are. So you can see that the top table there is what Charlie Young presented to us last time. It's one of the tables that we saw at our last meeting. And some of the conversations we'd had at our last meeting that then we followed up on. First one, the capital line, that's the bottom line of building school plant, you can see is 54,500. And if you recall from our conversation last time, Charlie Young said that the town of Brookline had deferred their vehicle purchase for the FY26 budget. And they are also planning to defer. I don't think this was clear at our last meeting, but he told Jesse and I yesterday that they're planning to defer for this
Next year.
upcoming year as well. Yep. So we talked about that, and if PSB would also need to defer the vehicle purchase. Charlie, of course, and I think we all agree with this. We want to make sure that the overall fleet is able to operate and is not in the shop getting repaired all the time. But of course, we're balancing all the different considerations against each other. Bella got from Joe Albuquerque the 9 vehicles that PSB has on its fleet. I pasted that in just so you all had that. There were 2 that didn't have a driver named, and so we weren't sure if either one of those was suitable or available to be repurposed. So I don't know, Bella and Susan, I imagine you can't answer that on the fly, but really the question was, if Charlie does need a vehicle in the short run, he mentioned that the van that they would be replacing, I think is it a 2010, Jesse? I don't remember all the details of it, but it's an older vehicle. And, is there any flexibility in existing PSB vehicles, given that, for example, the prior superintendent car was already repurposed this past year to IT in sort of a similar situation?
And the other one was, it would require some work, is that the third one from the bottom that's not listed to anybody is a transit vehicle, which means I think it has rows of seats in it, and that would have to be modified if Charlie Simmons was going to use it for like HVAC people to carry lots of equipment around and stuff. We'd have to do
It's
I don't know,
actually-
because it says it's a truck. Sorry, go ahead, Charlie.
Right.
You're
Actually,
here.
if I could jump in here, all 4 of the vehicles, the 2 listed, they're all passenger vans.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's what I was getting at, yeah.
Okay.
So that requires some changes if we were, it would require some cost to
But
retrofit for what.
I'm assuming they're not named for anyone, but they're being utilized.
Mhm.
Just,
Right.
for a purpose. So I don't know that they're free to.
But some
to
of them don't have a name. That
Well,
was
we
the
don't
point.
know,
Some
we
of
don't
them
know,
haven't
Bella,
even
where,
been
we don't
assigned.
know, Bella, what's
Right. Is Susan no longer on the call?
She's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Susan, do you know? I mean, I'm assuming the vans are used.
Yeah, we use vans for a variety of different things on a sign out basis, so I'm guessing that's probably why it's not named here. But I'm also not as familiar with every single vehicle that we have and who is overseeing the use of it, so we'd have to dig
So
a
I
little
think,
deeper on that.
yeah, and is it like, are there two vans needed? If those are the two sign out vans, are there two needed or could be one, or there really are two needed and we just defer for a bit? So there's more conversation to have here. I just wanted to give people sort of the update on what we talked about yesterday and some of the things that were on people's minds.
Yeah, I guess I'm confirming in that blank space what the purpose really is would be, of course, helpful to have.
Yes. Betsy, did you go away?
I
Or
did.
where'd
It was getting a little wonky. I'm sorry. I have to open it
Oh.
again.
Okay. I thought you dropped and I was like, oh
No,
no.
sorry. It wasn't, it was frozen, so I had to restart it.
No,
Sorry.
that was
Okay.
quick.
So the second question was what of the staff line up at the top. Do you mind just scrolling back up to the top, Betsy? You can see the personnel line is increased by $5,700 from 27 to 26. And the question was just who are the staff and what are their roles in supporting PSB? So if you could scroll back down, Betsy. Charlie Young he provided a table. It's on, I think, page 3. But you can see Charlie Simmons provided the roles. So, and you can see the percentage, which ties to that same table. So the first 3 roles, Dan, Charlie, well, we know what Charlie does, but Dan and Paul, and there's a description there next about construction projects, permits, et cetera, et cetera. And then each of the roles below. This just came in a couple hours ago, and I appreciate that, Charlie. You turned it around really quickly. But I haven't had the chance to read it all necessarily yet, and I think other people too might have
What is
questions.
the percent number, Charlie? What is that referring to with each name?
Betsy, can you scroll to page 3? It has to do with the percent that PSB pays of their salary.
That's what I was thinking, but there was no
Yes.
note about it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's right.
that's what it is.
It's here. And
there
actually,
you go.
Charlie Young's document that he'd given to us, just FYI, Betsy, can you not make it blue? It's harder for me to read. Thank you.
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah, so that it had the percentages in his document were not correct. I fixed them. So you can see the title on the farthest left column. You can see the salary and then the school portion, and you can see the percent allocation, and then you can see the difference in salary year to year. So you can see it's the 5,762. It's 1 here, I'm sure, due to rounding.
Yeah.
But
Got
that is the source of this. And you can see that the numbers are relatively stable over time. Some of them have varied, and some positions, I think, have come online. That was related to the override promise, right, Charlie? There was
Yeah,
some
it's
position switching.
organizations and changes over the years.
Yeah, so you can see that. So that was one thing we talked about on Tuesday, and this is the update, and our prior meeting. This is the update to that. Wanted to share with the committee. If you can go back, Betsy, to page 2 or 3. Yeah, 3, sorry. And I think we'll let people look at this offline because there's a lot of details there. Then 3 for utilities. Are there proposed changes to operations that town staff would suggest to reduce utility costs? So we talked yesterday about some of the previous attempts to maintain temperatures at certain sort of fixed levels in the buildings, and that it just ended up falling apart because it did. And so, is there a culture change that needs to happen so that we can maintain some discipline around building temperatures? And Charlie Young suggested that Bella, Susan, that you two and Joe perhaps want to talk with Charlie Simmons and Charlie Young about this. I mean, the utilities are getting so expensive at this point that making some changes here would be, could be quite large amounts of money. And other things we talked about were, after hour use. So the difference between that we might want to think about how PSB chooses to run the temperature during the school day versus after hours and weekends. And Charlie said that he has, because of the energy management systems in Driscoll, which are so modern, there's some utility usage data he could share. So we thought, like, let's get 24 hours on a weekday and 24 hours on a weekend day to sort of see what's going on with non-school utilities usage.
Yeah, just going to add, Maria, that one of the recommendations voted by expenditures and revenues earlier this afternoon had to do with finding potential revenue opportunities by, Charlie, you won't want to hear this probably, but by providing a reservation system that's open enough across the larger community so that we can maximize our after-school occupancy of programs and to make it transparent enough so people can see it, et cetera, which would actually potentially increase the number of hours that the buildings are being used out of hours and on weekends, which would either require potentially, a fee, larger fees to cover the extra utilities, or some other adjustment, because then your buildings are being used even more. It's not like we're going to shut the buildings at 8 p.m. and keep them really cold till the next morning. So just something to keep in mind, that there's a revenue opportunity there that would have to balance with this utility, the extreme cost of utilities.
Hang on one second, Carolyn, neither Jesse nor I were voting on these because
Right.
the school committee is not voting on ERSC,
Correct.
or townwide officials are not participating in the votes. But I
Right.
think that there's a lot of complex things going on here that are all intersecting around use by other town departments of the space at no fee and a whole bunch of other things. But most importantly, there are some things we can possibly control and other things that may be so complicated that they could be deferred. But things like Carol Levin suggested, and I think it's a great idea, like, having, just like we've been doing sustainability education around composting, and how do we get people to, maybe have a little competition around who can reduce their utility usage, which building can reduce the percentage of utility usage by the most, and having PTOs, sponsor wearing fleeces or something like that. Like, there's some behavioral stuff too that could really support. There you go, Carolyn. I like it. Carolyn's
Thank you,
walking,
Carolyn. There you
she's
go.
walking the walk over there.
I got to in my house.
That's kind of it, right? So how do we, I just think it's getting so expensive. And if you look at the year-on-year increase on utilities, Betsy, if you don't mind going up to page 1, utilities is increasing by 10% in 1 year.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
so what can we do to change the arc? I think it's really important for us to explore this further. And go ahead, Carolyn.
Yeah, I think I just want to sort of echo this, and sorry, I stepped away for a minute, so I don't know if it was covered. Like, is there even a policy, or is that what you're suggesting in terms of, like, what temperature do we keep the buildings on the weekends? Are they too warm? Like, with all the fancy technology, I would think we can, I can change my house from the car. So if there's an event at a building on a weekend, sure, heat on, but what's it set at and when does it go down? And I think we're probably spending a lot of money heating buildings in off hours. So I just would support sort of continuing to look at this and button this up. Thanks.
Great. And I just want to say, I think it's probably not a policy thing, because I think it needs to be agilely managed by the operations people. But I leave that, again, the recommendation there from Charlie
Policy
Young, if you
wasn't the
don't-
right word, but
Yeah, some sort of
recommended
SOP or
practice.
whatever.
Yeah.
Right. If you could just scroll back down, Betsy, the conversation was really, as it says, Charlie Young really says this needs to be a staff conversation for you all to talk about what's possible amongst yourselves. Number 4, the repair and maintenance non-salary budget. We talked about, is there anything left to be, removed? Charlie you said yesterday that you had already really taken out the savings that can be taken. You've already removed those from next year. Charlie Young pointed out that, we could consider taking some of the anticipated, $75,000 to $80,000 in savings. We could take some or all of it. We could take a fraction of it and as he pointed out, Charlie, you've already done this on the town side with one person and realized some savings.
Mhm.
So we could think about netting that out as well. And I put questions in green. The action items are in yellow and the questions are in green. They don't need to be answered right now, but those were just sort of things I was not clear on. And then CIP, prior year balances, there was just a question if there's any funds in prior years that could be, used against current CIP needs. And the Charlies are going to just pull that list. And I think Charlie Simmons, you said you'll just explain what the balance, what your rationale is for the remaining balances.
Yes.
And I just want to highlight here, we talked about this yesterday too, that a lot of Charlie's accounts are both town and school building support. So if you see something that says like elevator maintenance, it doesn't mean it's just school elevators. It's both things. Carolyn, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Old hand, it looks like.
Okay. And then the last thing we talked about yesterday, which I think is really important, is we're talking a lot about Charlie's next year request, but we are potentially in this override year. And how do we get ourselves out of doing the same conversation for the next 2 years? How do we coordinate and plan? On the town side, there has been an inclusion in the override of number that's been proposed for an increase. Do you know, Charlie, what that increase represents, like as a percentage of your budget on the town side?
Oh, I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in
Yeah,
anything from Chaz either yet.
Okay. Well, it'll be helpful. I think it would be helpful to understand percentage wise how that ties out. And then just thinking how we're going to manage this as well. And Charlie, you were going to sort of advise on what you thought for a percentage increase for PSB for the out years, what we should project for carrying. And then I just put something here that we didn't talk about yesterday, but it made me think about it, what we need to do for utilities. So, I mean, if we're going to get again behind the 8 ball because utilities are going to be a 10% increase, this really ties to that prior conversation. But if we can change the arc of it, we'll do much better. But if it's going to be 10% every single year, it doesn't matter what we put in the override because it's not going to be budgeted for next year. And then we're going to be back in this quandary again.
We do have long-term contracts for the supply of electricity and the supply of gas. And gas just went up based on a contract. And our contract, the new ones go out 2 or 3 years, and we always get contracts out in the future, so we get better pricing. So that number we know. And if you presume everything's the same, whether it's kilowatts or therms, you'd be able to predict going into the future what the number should be. But that doesn't happen. Part of the problem is the weather, the usage, and then all these extra charges. I'm sure you see them on your bills. It's coming from both utilities. There must be like 10 of them on the electric bill. And I've noticed just very recently that a couple of them just doubled. And it's something I don't understand why. And our consultants are not telling me about these things. And it has to do with what agreements they get with the state. So I did have a long conversation with our Eversource rep, and I'm setting up a meeting, and I'll be inviting a bunch of people, Charlie Young and so on, to try and get a handle on this, because it is a large chunk of the bill now. It wasn't, 20 years ago. And they're trying to use the money, I presume, to, there's energy conservation, there's improving the structure, the new wires, new gas, and so on, but it seems awfully expensive.
But I think you're making the point of, even if we don't know what they are perfectly, we really need to forecast it because, even if we're just carrying forward, historical increases, there needs to be some sort of acknowledgement that we're going to be underwater if we do nothing.
Yeah.
So that's the update from the conversations we've been having. I don't know that there's a punchline or a conclusion yet, but I think it was good to go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you. No, good. I guess going back to number 4 for Charlie, where did we land? Because it'll come up before school committee again with whether or not there's a memo that we didn't post here. I mean, it's in the meeting agenda. We haven't in the packet, but we haven't shown it up here, in which Charlie made a request for an increase from the prior year in order just to catch up from the cut that the school committee made last year, because he didn't get everything he asked for. So I guess what's our strategic vision, Mariah, for how we're going to address his request for an increase for FY27 to keep
Well,
the buildings as they need to be?
can you go up to the top, Betsy? Because I think it's easier if we talk about it
Yeah,
using
sure.
this chart here. So just to highlight that the number that's shown here for services, the 3633 number,
Mhm.
that's only at the 2.5%. That is not Charlie's full request. That's what's budgeted on the town side. It doesn't include what he's asked for us in addition. And so I think that there's a couple different levers here as we look at the total budget to answer your question. One is, do we elect to forego the vehicle that needs to, and so that would free up 54,000. Do we take the 80,000? And are there other changes that staff are willing to make in the utility usage that we can use to reduce our projected utility use? And those three things, I think, will really help us answer the question. But I don't think we have I think that, to me, those are the three things. And I think the first two, the 54,000 and the 80,000, school committee can make a choice on. Those would chip away significantly, Charlie. I know, although we'd be borrowing from other sources of your money, but that would allocate those over to substantially to the delta between what you've requested and what's listed here for the 3.6 million. And then it's the question of the
That'll help.
utilities. Yeah, it would help.
That would
Exactly.
be
It would
a
help.
good chunk. Yeah.
Yep. And then the real question, though, to me, like the elephant in the room is utilities. And, can there be some sort of commitment to something? And then can we quantify that? And then how does that play out? I think the point again, Jesse, is how does that play out not just for 27, but for 28 and 29?
Right. So Charlie, in your memo to the school committee and Bella, when you requested the 3.9 million, that's a combination of personnel and R&M together, because it's not represented in the table that that we're looking at here. We're showing like we're budgeting 3.6.
It's instead of the 3.6.
Well,
number, right?
I asked for 3.943.
Correct. Yeah, 3.943. And so
that's
this is
just
showing.
for,
That's for what?
that was just for services.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're
we're
asking for an additional 310,000 above
310.
and beyond what's shown here. And
That's
we've
right.
just talked about potentially around 135 of that. Or so 130 of that 310. And then there's, still questions of what can we do if we can
On
talk about
utilities side, yeah.
utilities, exactly. Behavioral modifications, or just, I won't say behavioral, I'll say
Culture
practice.
change.
Yeah, well, or whatever it's going to be.
A little bit of a culture change.
Decisions about utility usage.
Yeah, so, but that will be a slow process. So.
Well, not necessarily, Jesse. I mean, people all over the world, like literally their countries tell them we're going into brownouts and they change their behavior.
That's true.
Bella and Susan, I wonder if
Okay.
you would comment on this conversation of the whole thing, but particularly the utility use.
I have to defer to Susan. I don't know that she's ready.
Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing of it, so I'd like to,
Well, in fairness, it has been presented before, but Susan hasn't been available, understandably.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess I'm not asking about the dollars. I'm asking about, as leaders in the school district, is there something, do you think, well, this is something that we could spearhead to reduce our utility usage in our buildings? Even if it's something like, for example, we're not going to run the buildings at, I don't know what the exact number is, but let's say 71 right now. We're going to run them at 68.
Mm.
And no space heaters.
Yeah.
There are space heaters, yeah.
I understand
I think
that,
one of the challenges with it is when you make wholesale statements like that, in my experience in buildings, you might have an average of 68, but it could be awfully cold in one side of the building and very warm on another side. And
Mhm.
so I don't think it's as simple as just saying we're going to set it at 68, because there's going to be circumstances under which you're going to need to supplement.
And you might just say it and then you see how it goes. I don't think you're ever gonna know for sure.
I think
If- if
in every one of our houses, except possibly the most energy efficient, super insulated of all of us, we set our temperature somewhere, and some rooms are warmer and some rooms are colder, and
Yeah.
we live with it. And I guess like this is the thing is like choices have to be made at some point. So I'm really hoping that we can have some, affirmative decisions made here to support Charlie as we're trying to control the utility costs.
I could jump in here. There was,
Please.
like I said, 2 or 3 policies ago for 68 degrees, and we set it at 68 degrees. That's a temperature sensor on the wall. And Peter O and I talked about it because there were a lot of complaints. And the agreement was where the person sits, where the teacher sits, that will be 68 degrees. So if their desk happens to be by the windows, it is colder. So I'd bump it up, say 2 degrees to get to 68, because it was actually 66. And we sort of, it's not globally, but we customized those areas as people requested it. And most of the time it was fine. And it made sense.
But we're not doing that now. It's
Everything is
Not-
72. Yeah. No.
72. Okay. So this is really helpful. Sarah, go ahead.
I know we don't have time for extraneous questions, so you might say to me that this is not the time for that. I would love to have an explanation from you, Mariah. I still can't figure out, is a different question that we could ask, just like the one that you just asked. If we could pass the true expense of continuing to heat the building onto after school hours onto the vendors that operate in our buildings.
So I think we alluded to this a little bit earlier. Some people are operating in our buildings, and some people are at fees, and some people like rec or not. But I think that the first step is if you go down a little bit, Betsy, to the part where we talked about Charlie giving us the 24-hour sort of understanding, like what percentage of our utilities, if we just use these 2 days as proxies, like what percentage of our utilities are actually school day expenses versus after school or other after hours, non-school utility usage. And so this is starting to get somewhat at your question, Sarah, because the reality is that like the PSB budget is being asked to carry a very large utility budget, and not all of it is related to school activities. And it may not be, it's very likely it's not appropriately allocated in the charges for facility use, but again, not every user is even paying a fee.
So
The buildings are a
Charlie,
public resource.
Charlie,
Sorry, go ahead, Bella.
what's the temperature on town site? What did they set it to?
72. It
72.
was a policy made at the same time. Both the
I
select board and the school committee approved it, but it was the same kind of situations. And frankly, you can walk around town hall and see electric heaters all over the place.
Yep.
Yeah.
People
Well,
like it warm.
actually, my heat hasn't been working.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's
Should get
been
the-
freezing, and I haven't gotten a space heater because I know if I get one, everyone will say okay, but it's really
I will
cold.
fix your.
No, it's
You got the
really-
right
I'll
guy.
take care of it.
Yeah, I don't.
Yes, we gotta keep you warm. Yeah,
I don't-
But I
it's
think
more
that's a
important.
good point too, Bella. I mean, I think it's.
I
think
mean,
this
I
is
don't
something
get
that
one
it's a
because
shared
I'm like
opportunity.
so I'm just trying to set an example, but it's really cold.
I was just going to add, Mariah, that again, as a follow-up to Cliff Brown's proposal about a town, we'll say it town-wide, including the schools, reservation system for rooms, and Charlie Simmons's ability through sensors to know what's going on in the rooms of every building, at least the more modern buildings, that if you merged to the EMS, energy management system, with the online reservation system, you'd be able to look from, say, a school committee perspective or whatever, or he could, when the room was being used by the music program in the evening for a concert, this is what the temperature was there. When it was being used for the gym was being used, this is what the temperature was there. When there was a rental by an outside
Charlie,
group,
I
this
thought
is
you
what it
had
was.
that already. Don't you have that already or no? I thought that the EMS was fed by room occupancy data already, Jesse.
It,
that-
it does. We set a base schedule, and if someone wants to rent a room, a space, it's put in through School Dude, which is now called Brightly. And that schedule gets approved, and it automatically gets put into the energy management system. And the heat or the air conditioning and ventilation would come on automatically for that space for that time. And then as soon as the program was over, it shuts off. But I modify that a little bit. What I do is I get the heat ready, say if it was 8 o'clock at night. And if no one walks in by 8:15, I just shut the heat off. Because I'm presuming something got changed or canceled, and it just starts slowly drifting down. And suppose there was a half an hour delay. People would walk in, be a little cool, but it automatically come back up because it's still occupied, and they'd be fine. And that's been working pretty good.
Nice.
Every once in a while, there's somebody that doesn't put in a schedule or, screws up a day and they walk in on Sunday and it's cold. But we'll take care of it as long as we know.
Love that. That's great.
That's
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities here. I know, I think probably all of us at our house, or most of us, are running the temperatures at these more reasonable, more economic levels.
It's true. I'm running at 65 at home.
There you go, right?
I'm sitting in a
So-
I'm sitting in a jacket for a
Same.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
So I think that this is something, and I think that kids also, they care deeply about the environment, and this is an environmental issue.
Yep.
So there's something to be said about, and I believe it does, it aligns with our goals about how we
Yep.
should be leading on environmental issues as well and sustainability. So I think we have some next steps here, but I don't think we're going to solve anything tonight unless the subcommittee wants to, vote to recommend that we would take the savings from the car or the savings from the HVAC tech at this point. But I think we could also wait and have a little bit more information and conversation and then come up with something that is a little bit more integrated and thinks about multiple years as well.
Are you
I would.
are you asking about the car and the HVAC tech, or just those two
Correct.
things?
Just those two things. We could sort of front load some of our decisions, but I think we don't have the whole entire thing ready in front of us. So,
Right.
And those are pretty easy ones to, like, they don't require a lot of planning and thinking to understand. So we could also just hold that until we have a little bit more information about a larger plan.
I would vote to go with the larger plan.
Okay.
It'll seem like we have it more integrated and, thoughtfully put together.
Sarah, are you okay with that?
I think I need a little bit more time. So yeah.
Okay. Is there any other comments on any of this or any new, I think we're at the new business part of the agenda.
I'm good.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated. Thank you, Charlie, Bella, Robin, Karen, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Much
Thank you.
appreciated. Have a good night.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.